So welcome to our customer experience session. My name's Marie Knopp. I'm a customer experience practitioner working in the pharmaceutical industry for nearly 20 years now. I'm part of DT Consulting, part of Indogene Group, and really excited to be part of this fifth Indogene Summit. So we've got four exceptional industry leaders with us today as we unpick customer experience as an enabler of digital transformation. So I'd really love to introduce Mark Schwartz, who's Global Head of Omnichannel Excellence at Sanofi. Welcome, Mark.
Hi.
I've got Matthias Witt, Vice President, Integrated Customer Experience from Bayer. Welcome,
Hello.
Matthias.
Hello, everybody.
Dr. Christian Velten is here he's a strategic lead digital customer experience from Roche. Welcome, Dr. Christian. And last but not least, Tessa Barron, VP for Marketing for On24. So really huge welcome, guys. Thanks for being with us today. I'm looking forward to a great conversation. I've just got a couple of slides to set some context first of all. So if we can have the slides. Perfect. So DT Consulting's been keeping a pulse check on the state of healthcare professional and patient customer experience over the last years. And whilst customer experience seems to be widely understood, the industry still seems to fall behind other sectors. So customer experience and omnichannel transformation are not the same thing, but they're definitely intrinsically linked. Multi-year omnichannel transformation efforts have generated a lot of programs and initiatives. Tech enablement has been led by smaller, more focused groups, and this has led to silos beyond those traditional brand or business unit silos. So the industry now is retroactively stitching together an experience, building an improved customer experience, but still very much tethered to past performance. So if we can go to the next slide. So key to any customer experience design and delivery is a real North Star vision. So excellent customer experience visions deliver a single lexicon for the whole organization. They accelerate growth ambitions through delivery of high impact experiences, and they reduce those unnecessary or unwelcomed activities and costs. The delivery of excellent customer experience is an iterative cycle. So whether supporting large or small scale change, they follow this similar process. So starting with a clear understanding of the customer, who they are, what they're trying to achieve, and how that impacts an organization's growth ambitions. Then, after we look externally, we need to focus on the internal and benchmark and understand our organizational capabilities. So this range of micro communities, each with different skill sets, roles, and levels of capability. And once we understand that external and internal, we can create a rigorous strategy. So clearly, it's needed to align all functional roles, and it absolutely needs to be rigorously and continually communicated. Next, the customer experience operating model. So this is a single blueprint needed to collectively create the experience. As well as ensuring colleagues have the right tools, operating models need to adopt the right services and give suppliers and colleagues the right direction. Suppliers can absolutely support or accelerate transformation, but they can also create friction. They can suggest new activity or pull teams off course. And of course, then there's a difference or a dynamic between global and local delivery. Finally, measurement, the voice of the customer. Is the organization delivering value? Combine this with analytics or sales figures, and we can really understand levels of success. This cycle can become an absolute flywheel, accelerating transformation, creating that sort of iterative improvement, but it can also become a millstone, creating cost, additional activities, and distracting from those organizational goals. So final slide, and then we'll get into our discussion. Across sectors, organizational culture is playing a huge role in the acceleration of transformation. Get this right, and it's a real facilitator. The old management pyramid is being replaced with this sort of tree model. So leadership create a strong foundation for growth with clarity of vision and strategy, forming that strong root base. Colleagues are then empowered to act swiftly and decisively rather than have to escalate decisions and wait. Each business unit or branch has autonomy, but also has organizational context. In a similar way, the model supports suppliers as partners with clarity on the rules of engagement. The model enables positive internal disruption with a culture of test and learn. So pilots can be scaled fast or fail fast, meaning growth isn't dependent on the lowest common denominator. But they also, in this model, we help facilitate shaping the organization. So we can bring together common strands or prune back activities or relationships with third parties that really aren't helping. And also for the development of a shared customer conscience. So this model, I think most of us, absolutely the customer is a real sort of shared motivator, and generating those insights, sharing them across an organization are the energy to feed growth and ever inform future transformation. So I'm going to turn to my panel now. We can close down those slides. And probably go to you, Matthias, first, as a fellow customer experience practitioner. When we look at customer experience visions, are these being done as practice? Is the industry comfortable with these, or what's your experience?
Thank you, Marie. Thanks for the introduction slides as well. I don't think that customer experience vision and strategies are standard yet. If we are looking at our industry, we have come through this journey you have described on the first slide as from some channel to multi-channel to omni-channel. And if we are thinking why we have done this, I think most of us have said we want to improve the customer experience. What I'm seeing now is that we are at the tipping point where more and more are turning it around and saying, hey, we need to focus on the customer experience, and omni-channel and all of these things are enabler to do this. So to your question, no, I don't think it's standard yet. It's going to be there. And there are multiple things I think we need to consider in building customer experience vision and strategies. So one thing is, don't create your vision somewhere in the blue sky. Connect it. Connect it to your company vision. So we have connected our customer experience vision to our buyer vision. So hunger for none, health for all. So the second part as an example, and connect it to your brand visions, and to brand strategy. That is important because that are key enablers to really, as a like your tree, grow it within the organization and enable the people to that they really can connect to it. And then the second piece for me is what is important is co-created, really co-created with internally, cross-functionally, but also if you're from a global function, co-created also on the vertical with your countries, with your regions, however your setup is, so that you have buy-in right from the beginning, and then you need to socialize it going through. It is really, it is a team sport. It's not a single function sport.
Perfect, thank you. Does this view differ for any of the rest of you, or? Tessa, I saw you nodding vigorously through this.
Yeah, I think the omnichannel as an enabler really is just so true. And, so often people talk about digital transformation, but they stop at the digital. They think digital is the transformation, but actually it's the transformation, the operating model, the process, the people. That's the hard part. And I think often we start with let's get technology, let's do tactics, let's run omnichannel campaigns, but we forget about the people running it, the process enabling it, how we're all going to work together. And that's actually the transformation. The digital is the enabler.
And we're forgetting our customers. Yeah,
absolutely. Why we're doing it in the first place, right?
Yes.
So let's look at how we define our customers. Mark, I'll come to you. How do we define customers or across an organization in order to set this vision?
Yeah, and thank you for the question. And by the way, I agree with everything that everyone is saying on the panel here. So thanks for that good intro. Look, this is a passionate area of mine. I come from the hotel industry. So when I think customer experience, I've got a whole different view when it comes to customer experience. But let's be clear in terms of in pharma, right? When people ask me, oh, how do you define customer experience? Well, it's giving customers what they want, how they want it, when they want it, where they want it. You can tell I've said that a million times. That's essentially a pretty good experience. But that's just one element of it. So I'm going to bring you back into my hotel world. Yes, when you think about customer experience, you think of providing great customer service and ease of use and making sure you've got consistent experiences and personalization and making sure that you're efficient and all that. There's one word that we use in the hotel world, and that is surprise and delight. You need to always provide a surprise and delight at every touch point. Let me go a step further. It isn't about the functional. When we talk about customer experience, it's about the emotion. So the real definition, when I think about customer experience, it's the feelings, it's the thoughts, it's the smells and tastes, right? And the sounds that are conjured up by your customers when they think of your brand or product, right? And one last thing that's, I think, really important here is that an exercise that we used to do in my other space that I brought over to pharma was really, there are what we call 5 human truths, right? And everyone listening to this call, everyone on this panel has those same human truths. They want to be understood. They want to feel special. They want to belong. They want to feel in control, and they want to reach their potential. If you think about those 5 human truths for a second, right? What are those activities around customer experience to enable that? And it's a real great starting point to think about how do you create those emotional connections with your customers using those human truths. So a little too much there in detail in the hotel industry. And I'm not trying to change pharma into hotels or hotels into pharma. They're different industries, I get it. But I'll tell you something. There's one thing that's the same, and that is the customer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wholeheartedly agree with that the emotional motivation piece. So thinking about going from external to internal, and I'll come to you, Christian, first. How do we are there specific roles that we should really motivate on this, or that should own this customer relationship? Or how do we think about that in our internal colleagues and how they work around the customer experience and share that thought around delighting the customers?
Yeah, excellent question. If you allow me, I would just very quickly give plus 100 to Mark.
Yeah.
Because no, there's a good reason for it. Because talking for Roche, and I think it was the same across the industry. We are scientific companies, right? We are working based on scientific, rational evidence, narratives, scientific data. We have a blind spot with empathy and emotions. So if I look how, for example, our personas are defined, how our journeys are defined, this is very fact-based, and we completely fade out the situation of an ACP after an 18-hour shift is seeing a patient and has to take the right decisions. At the same time, having troubles with his or her personal relations due to having a challenging job and long working hours. So we are today generously ignoring, and I think we need to get this emotional part of it really, really more in. We are totally ignoring this so far. So just on that. Back to the question. To make a clear point, to my opinion, leadership with CX, ownership of CX is for everybody. We are together providing the customer an experience. So do we need specialized functions who are facilitating, taking people's hands and saying, this is how you can do and execute? Yes, I'm currently deploying the global voice of the customer program at Roche. You need specialists for that. You cannot give the tool to someone, to everybody doing any kind of survey with someone. So you need to have the capability, but the ownership is from, let's say, from the housekeeper up to the CEO. Well, ideally vice versa. From the CEO to the house, to the housekeeping staff. The challenge with that, and if you allow me just to add an anecdote. A couple of months ago, I was facing a question by a colleague who is really a great colleague. He's smart, he's innovative, He has the right thinking. He is one of our best talents, to my personal opinion, in the Roche business on global layer. He asked me, well, in 2 weeks, we have a scientific congress. What can we do short term? Some kind of fancy CX tool, tactics, whatsoever. This is, I simply said, no, nothing. This is not the approach. I think it's important to understand mindset is not enough. We cannot achieve and have progress without mindset, but just having the mindset does not allow people to translate this into the right action. Understanding that CX is not doing things on top. CX is doing what you do, but in a different way. CX is a different way of working. It might develop into a different way of doing business. It's an enterprise ambition. It's everybody's job, and this means it's everybody's ownership. Hope it makes sense.
No, great answer and great insight, and I love the anecdote too. Do you still come across people who think customer experience is people pleasing, and they don't understand how it links to, your organizational drivers? I think that's my personal.
Just today, just right,
okay.
A couple of hours ago, and I know I'm not the only one. I look into the other faces. I think this is familiar. Yes, there is some misunderstanding that we are doing all of that, especially for the voice of the customer piece.
Yeah.
Also considering if you ask the customer, you might hear things you might not like to hear. But there is this understanding of CX is about being nice, showing up, corporate reputation, kind of stuff. I always try to make a very clear point. No, this is for having more and better business, full stop.
Yeah.
The challenge for all of us working in the field is really doing a mapping to business strategy, business outcomes, and business metrics. So this is, for me, beyond best practice use cases. We had an example where we pleased a particular HCP in a particular affiliate, and this increased business at the end. But we need to systematically map CX outcomes and metrics to business outcomes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
Matthias, I saw you nodding there.
Yeah, I think, Christian, what you're describing it is a culture shift. It is accepting these, embracing the data and seeing data and the insights you're generating from this as learning opportunities, and not as failure. And that is you need to get ingrained that in the DNA of your culture, of your company, to get this going. And I think all of us are seeing or getting all of these questions. So show me, what is the impact of CX? And with some data around this. And yes, we have to prove it somewhere. We have tons of data from other industry, like the hotel industry. Mark, we can apply, but also there's data now coming up also in the pharma sector. So to show the impact.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, with greater technological capability, we have more data. So Tessa, I'll come to you next. How do you think as we invest in technology and the capability around that, how do you think we can optimize the use of the technology to really help further transformation in a positive way?
Yeah, it's a great question, Marie. And I must say, it is so great to be asked that question as a partner to many leading pharma brands, helping to provide them with a platform to create digital experiences that hopefully fit into a larger CX strategy. And I think that, I'll build on what I was saying earlier and echo much of what has been stated by the other panelists. Buying technology is easy, and that should come last. It should be the last part of a CX strategy. And so often we see this pattern of customers coming to us and saying, we want to do this. We want to do this. And we have to ask them why. What are you trying to accomplish? What are the insights you're trying to gather? How is this helping to further that larger strategy? Let's start there before we even begin to talk about a tactic that is part of that experience. And, I think that is often where we will see customers getting lost, is they will think that a collection of tactics is going to somehow magically add up to strategy. And it just doesn't. And I would say to everyone out there as well, you know, come to your partners, whether it's On24 or others, share with us your strategy, and then let us help you figure out how to implement the tactics rather than coming in with, you know, a set of feature requirements or so on. I think having that bigger conversation with your technology partners can really be how you drive that joint innovation and ensure that it is meeting ultimately the business objectives that you're trying to drive versus just being another activity that you're going to execute to say you're doing digital or creating great experiences. There's no strategy, it's probably not going to measure up.
No, absolutely.
Can I just add to that really quickly? So yeah, totally agree that, you know, the customer comes first and technology follows. But let's also not, you know, we've got to be careful in terms of we need the right data. We need the right technology enablers, right? We need all this stuff at the end of the day to enable what we want to do. I like to always point out to Amazon again, and what I call, and what I've heard before, so I didn't make this up, but the Amazonification, did I say that right? Amazonification of healthcare. It's coming. It's here. So we're going to be all sort of having higher expectations here in terms of customer experience. They've got great systems, great data, and just watch and see. And then we're gonna, you know, we need to pivot quickly as an industry to be able to create these great experiences, because it's going to come. It's going to come very quickly, and you're going to see the Amazons of the world and others kind of entering the space, creating these great experiences.
Mark, just to build on that. Oh, sorry, Maria. I was going to say, I think that also means we have to enable teams to think differently about how they're executing tactics. Yep. So, you know, if you want to deliver personalization, then you have to understand what are the 2 or 3 data points that you're going to collect on that audience you're reaching, and know that before you've ever executed. It's so interesting how often we'll see, you know, our customers execute something and then realize, oh, I could have learned something here. And so, you know, you have to build a process that almost works back from what's going to happen after you have an interaction with an HCP or a patient, so that you're capturing the right insights to then take that next step and continue to personalize the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very easy to design a company from the start to create something new, but how do we bring colleagues on that journey? How do we initiate these sort of like bursts of growth and bring the rest of the organization with us?
I can just build on what I said before, if it's okay for you. I think Tessa nicely framed it already. It's creating an understanding. This is not about doing something on top. This is doing what you anyhow do, but just in a different way. This is about changing your way of working. This, I'm afraid to say, might require specialists which are side by side. I would have another anecdote of initiative we had 1.5 years ago, where everybody was blocked. So we had a nice roundtable discussion, and we said, what do we need to change to provide a better customer experience? Everybody on the table agreed. All functions agreed. This is what we need to do, including feedback loops and not planning anything without having a clear understanding of the customer's expectation. Then people dropped off this table and were back into their day-to-day reality. And you will not be surprised to hear that the spontaneous behavior shown was just doing what they always have done. So like being a completely different individual. So we are talking here actually about behavioral change, which is among the hardest things to achieve. This is not just using a new tool. No, you need to change your behavior. In that situation I'm describing, I was lucky out of my team to provide a CX lead, or CX specialist, putting aside, taking the hand and saying, I'm your additional resource. Let's do this together. Did they at the end have the ideal outcome? No. But together they realized, or the colleague in business realized, this was no risk. So at the end, my life is even easier, and I provided something that is more meaningful to the customers, or giving us more and better business. But we need specialists taking hands and guiding, facilitating, showing how to do it, from preaching to doing.
So that's a really great point around stopping doing something. So changing past practice and actually stopping some elements. And obviously that would then save costs. So I'd love to hear from someone else on how they manage suppliers and manage colleagues to sort of stop some of these initiatives. Matthias, have any anecdotes from you?
Yeah, so couldn't agree more than what Christian said. So unlearning something, and there's actually a very nice video around cycling. Yeah, we all being used to cycle in a certain way. If you're putting the steering wheel in a different order, you can't unlearn it. It takes ages until you unlearn it and learn it the new way. And that is exactly what we are facing. And we also supporting them teams with helping them doing the first steps. And I'm doing a lot of sports, but learning a new technique requires training. It really requires training. You need to to learn a technique in tennis or whatever sports you are doing. You have to do it hundreds of times. Yeah, maybe hundreds is a bit too much, but you have to do it until it's really in your brain, and you can do it. You can do it alone. Until then, you have a trainer and coach to remind you. And we have seen, I think, many of us working agile. That's the house was also the role of the agile coach. And yeah, it's a similar thing what we need to provide from my point of view than for organizations on that journey. So you need to build that transformation program and support program to enable the change in the organization.
Absolutely. Perfect. And with regards to changing behavior, do you think frameworks can help more, or organizational culture, or is it a mix of all of those things? Mark, any thoughts from you?
It's definitely, well, from my point of view, it's a mix. You know, everyone said the right things here, and we're all in agreement. It's a cultural mind shift change. I mean, it starts there, and quite frankly, it starts at the top. But to enable that, you need frameworks, right? Because people need guidance. They need the blueprint of how to do this. So when you think about, you know, frameworks, you think about, you know, you got to define your vision, right? You need to define your strategy. You need to establish the principles and all that. Then you need to communicate and create teams and all that. So you need both a cultural shift that comes from the top, in my opinion, but you need guidance documents and blueprints in terms of here's what you need to do. You know, we're so focused, it's not a bad thing. I mean, we're so focused on tactics, you know, and getting the email out and implementing your omnichannel campaigns and doing all that. I get it. It makes sense. That's why we're here. But sometimes we lose the why and why we're doing that. And that is to create a great experience. And sometimes we lose that. So I do believe you need both, but definitely both, a mind shift change and also a framework. Well, don't forget to do this, and we need to do this. And also one last thing, I think you do need someone in charge. I mean, we used to have a chief experience officer that was just focused on this. And again, in my other industries, that person had to sign off on the marketing plans. That's interesting thought. They had to sign off on the marketing plans. Is this delivering a great experience? Is this providing a surprise and delight, etc.? That's a mind shift change. So you need both.
And Mark, I was, you know, just to build on that, to maybe make something, even just a tangible suggestion, an area that we find where customers lose the why is actually on the transition from strategy to execution. So even how tactics get requested to those executing it, we'll take a look at the briefing or intake or service ticket, whatever the mechanism is. Mm-hmm. And we'll find that all that amazing strategy that existed in a PowerPoint slide is not included in the request for the execution. So we've done all this planning, all this thinking, and then suddenly it gets chucked over and people just, you know, execute without any understanding of why. And so even just updating how those requests or briefs are being delivered to the end team doing that execution, that can be game changing. That could totally transform how things get done. it's those simple little points of failure that can really add up, I think, to a big change.
Saw you nodding there, Matthias and Christian. Anything to add?
Maybe an additional point I would like to bring in. I think if we're talking back to our starting point on CX vision and strategy, from my experience, it's also important to think about how do you measure your progress towards your CX vision. What are the points how you can see that you have made steps towards it, and someone needs to orchestrate, not government. I think it's orchestrate, but someone needs to look at it. How can we see that and report that back to hold the people accountable for the things for driving it forward? Yeah, that is another component that is very to drive that transformation, the CX transformation forward. But it comes really, you need to describe it. How can you see the progress, and then starting measuring it? Yeah, internally.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you think, so we've talked about not putting in measurement as parts of briefing, so not bringing that strategy right through to execution, not putting in place sort of measures of success as we execute on a vision. Who do you think ultimately is responsible for this? Is there someone who can hold this role and be accountable? Is it procurement, CEOs? Who should be watching this? Be good to hear from all of you. I'd love to hear some disagreement as well. But yeah, I'll go around all of you.
Yeah,
first.
Perhaps it's hard to find disagreement between people who are working in this space for a while, because we might have shared learnings actually.
Mm-hmm.
All I can say is, if I speak to my peers in other industries, there's one common pattern, and this always says a clear CEO board level ask, clear CEO board level advocacy. CEO showing up and not only asking what are your sales figures, but also always asking with every review, business review, asking what do our customers say about it. It's hard to have substantial progress without. I personally dare to say, and perhaps they're opposing opinions on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Tessa?
Well, I will have to bring the perspective from the technology industry and who we believe is really at the center of that. And it is the customer success officer, the customer experience officer, however you want to define that. It's ensuring that we're thinking about success through the lens of the customer first, and then understanding that if they succeed, our business will follow, and holding the organization accountable to that. It could live in marketing. It could live in an organization yet to be defined. But I think really having someone who is that steward of the customer, and it's what we do in technology, to make sure that all the different parts are working together and the customer's in the center is really, really important.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Matthias?
Yeah, I'm in the camp here. So it's, for me, it's you need to have a C-level accountable, whoever that is. It can be a specific role to it. It can be the chief marketing officer. Somebody has to take this accountability to drive it forward, and connecting with his peers in that case, and bringing that forward. So that is, I think, the important thing. To get it done.
Yeah.
Mark.
And Mark.
Yeah, I'm glad I was the last one on that. I totally agree. It's C-suite. It's got to come top down, and they set the tone. They set the culture. They say that this is incredibly important. They come into the reviews and they ask not just about ROI, but they ask, well, what's it doing for the customer, and how's it affecting the customer and impacting the customer, et cetera. So it comes top down, and it doesn't hurt to have accountability, to have someone like a chief experience officer or that can actually implement and execute, et cetera, on top of that. But it comes top down.
No, I'm glad you mentioned ROI there. So how do we financially ensure we stop paying for activities and elements? We stop resourcing elements that aren't delighting the customer experience. How do we focus on the finances? Mark, I'll pick on you as well as an operational lead first.
How do we focus? I mean, look, at the end of the day, ROI, let's face it, ROI is important, right? And making sure that we're doing the right thing. And that should drive, many of the activities, but it's not just that. And when I think about quantification of this, you always have to look at ROI in combination with customer experience or VOC measures, right? Voice of customer measures. And together that will define what you, quite frankly, what you start and stop. And that's, I don't think we're there yet, quite frankly, as an industry, but that's the direction we need to take. It's not just about the ROI. People have to just think differently, and how does it affect the customer? And that'll determine what you start and stop.
Mark, I think, often ROI is a lagging indicator, and it's going to take a while to measure it. So it's also understanding, what are your leading indicators? Are you collecting net promoter scores to be able to forecast what ultimately that ROI is, but base it on the actual experience that a customer is having with you? I think that's setting leading and lagging indicators so that you're able to evolve and be agile as it's actually happening.
No, fantastic. Cool. We've only got a few minutes left, so I'm going to go to the Q&A. Here's a good question. What do you see as an essential investment for facilitating an improved customer experience? So transformation as part of customer experience. Just probably go around all of you really quickly. What do you think is the most essential investment? Christian?
Have a clear, consistent, and simple CX measurement framework in place.
Perfect. Matthias?
Additionally, there's more time and resource, maybe investment, is building the six vision and strategy.
Okay. Mark, what would you say is the essential investment for facilitating this?
I mean, there's a lot. So, but I would say a chief experience officer.
Okay, perfect. And Tessa?
People, process, then technology. So figuring out and understanding, do you have the talent? Do you have that vision? Do you have the right structure? Have you set the right framework in place with the right expectations? And then what are the enablers that you need to, make that all work? So people, process, then technology is my answer.
Perfect. And we've got another question here. How would you recommend keeping local market suppliers in check? So I think this relates to that sort of global and local dynamic when we've got suppliers leading global initiatives or supporting global initiatives, and then obviously lots of local activities. So how do we keep those two things aligned?
I can speak to that because it's my day-to-day reality.
Okay.
Roche is a very decentralized organization. So our affiliates, our countries, our local market providers have a lot of autonomy. So I cannot come and say, this is now the VOC program, this is what you need to do, this is not going to fly. So the approach I anyhow love is doing this jointly together. But I very early in any CX activity, the first people I reach out to be included in any kind of design thinking, co-design process are affiliate representatives, because this is where the customer is, and this is where any activity succeeds or fails.
Yeah, and I would like to add here to this, because it's an important discussion point as well. And my opinion here is the real customer experience being created in the market. If we are thinking about one of our customers like an HCP, and I'm looking at understanding the customers, and I'm comparing HCPs from Japan, China, somewhere in Europe and the US, they have different needs, they have different pain points, they have maybe for different situations, different emotions, what Mark alluded to at the beginning. So we need to take that into account and build the experience on that. So only can to a certain degree define the customer experience on a global level. Finally, it has to be made on a market level in the environment where the customer is. Yeah,
I mean,
and then you need to have the local providers to help you. Yeah,
totally agree. I was just gonna. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Completely agree with both of you in terms of you need a strong global strategy, right? You've got role for global in setting the tone and et cetera, and the overall approach. But at the end of the day, it's executed by local, and you've got to. What a great customer experience is consistency. Consistency of experience. If you've got a different experience in one country than another, guess what? You've got a fragmented experience in your brand and your product, and that doesn't work. So a great, clear, consistent local strategy is important.
Really fascinating. And how do you collate all that information from the markets, but then facilitate something globally? Mark, if you could talk to that a little bit more, that would be great.
Well, you've got so every company is different in how they implement a local strategy. So there's not one general rule here, but you've got to have a process, a way of working in place that enables a good global way of working. And again, every company is different, but the outcome is the same. You need to have a one approach, but way of working's got to change, and that's the only way that global and local will be aligned, but they've got to talk and they've got to align. But global has a role and local has a role, but they've got to come together.
Perfect. Well, we're almost out of time. Probably if I could go around and get just a few last words from all of you. What do you think the most exciting or the most urgent priority for 2024 is going to be when it comes to improving customer experience and finally sort of realizing, a great customer experience? Christian, I'll come to you first.
Don't do anything without having a plan, but change happens by doing.
Okay, perfect. Matthias?
Embracing empathy for the customers. That is critical. I'm bringing that into the organization.
Brilliant. Tessa?
Work back from the why. Understand why you are executing tactics and work back from there. And I even think, work back from how those tactics are getting executed and understand those points of failure. So start with the why, figure out the how, then do the what.
Perfect. And Mark, lastly to you.
Yeah, I would just say, first of all, do something is number one. And number two really is just know that customer experience is not a bolt-on. It's not a bolt-on to marketing. It's one and the same.
Perfect. Well, thank you all so much. I'm really sorry I couldn't get any, contention or disagreement from you all, but it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you all. It would be really great for all of you and you, the audience, to join us in the experience zone following this discussion. But for now, I'll close this out and thank you very much to our panel again. It's been awesome talking to you.
Thank you, Marie.
Thank you.
you.